You know, Teddy wasn't around in 2017, so this is pretty big in our household here. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, but my favorite bet is each team to kick one field goal in the first half. That's it. That's plus 155. That's all you need. Look, even Teddy is on board. Even Teddy knows the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. 1+ field goal each first half, plus 155.
What's up, everybody? Off to get some delicious breakfast, but before I eat, I want to tell you, best bet of the Super Bowl, A.J. Brown. First touchdown, you can find it 10-1 out there in the market, of course. Enjoy the game, have fun. Talk to you guys soon.
So I heard you were looking for some long shot Super Bowl props. If the Chiefs are playing in any game, you know what name's coming out of my mouth. The same one you've been hearing all of 2023. The same guy who's been putting money in your pockets all 2023. Isaiah Pacheco, the human credit card payment. We've been taking those rushing props. We've been taking those receiving props. I'm going to combine them. Go rushing and receiving and bumping it all the way up. Don't you know? Bump it up. Isaiah Pacheco, 125 plus yards. That's going to get you plus 800. And if you're looking for a nice way to go into the offseason, that's a pretty good way. If you ask me, you'll be sitting in the sun with me after the Super Bowl. Isaiah Pacheco, over 125 plus rushing and receiving.
Oh, hey, don't tell anybody you saw me reading this. This is the copy to this weekend's script to the Super Bowl. So I have all the information. I already know what happens in the game. I have the script copy right here. Only sent it out to a very, very select amount of content creators. I happen to be one of them. So I've got a bet for you. Kadarius Toney plus 420 anytime touchdown score. It's in the script. Go ahead.
I got a big dog, and this big dog's got to eat. So I got to make some money here on the Super Bowl with my best bet, Patrick Mahomes to throw 2 or more interceptions. You can find that plus 450 and higher across the entire industry. 25 interceptions, 12 this season for Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. You have 17 interceptions for the Eagles throughout this season. Slay, Bradbury, just a ridiculous secondary. Fire that one up, and good luck.
If you're not betting the long shot to win Super Bowl MVP this year, what are you doing? Don't even bother turning the TV on, okay? Sure, in all likelihood, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. But there's an absolute dog on the defensive line that's going to wreak havoc on this Kansas City offense all game long. We're talking about someone that finished second in sacks this season, first in forced fumbles, first in fumble recoveries, has 3.5 sacks in the postseason through only 2 games. Trying to block this dude is like standing in between a crackhead and his connect after he spent all day trying to get his money up. It's just not going to happen. So guess what? If Jalen Hurts is mediocre and the Eagles still win this game and they continue to run a committee in the backfield, it's going to be Hassan Reddick at 35-1 taking home the MVP. And Patrick Mahomes is going to be having nightmares about number 7 for years to come.
Hey guys, take your time. I'm just trying to count your Phillies hats behind. What's happening out there, Stokastic basketball fans? Good morning. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show for Saturday, February 11th, something like that, 2023, pretty sure, something around there. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Enjoy your coffee. Enjoy your wake and bakes. We're brought to you by our pals over at PrizePicks this morning. We're going to talk through this whole NBA slate. It was a high-scoring, crazy night of basketball last night. I'm joined by Adam Scherer this morning. We're going to talk through all of that. We're going to talk through all of today's action. But Adam, how you doing? How'd your night go last night?
I'm doing pretty well. I lost last night. I didn't even pay attention to the slate, so I have no idea what happened. I just looked this morning and was like, oh, it was not a good night. But yeah, no, on to the next one.
Yep, on to the next one indeed. I had one chaser early and everything completely fell apart with the 4:10 o'clock games. EMAC was pinging me, during the slate. He had a chaser and was just like, yeah, four games coming. This is not going to hold up. And he predicted that pretty accurately. Didn't hold up for me. I don't think it held up for him, but congrats to any winners that we had out there. I did see some logos floating around toward the top on FanDuel. I don't know if we got anybody all the way up to the top, but I'm sure we had some good winners out there. So congrats to them. Let's see what we got to do business-wise before we launch into this slate. I'm sure there's some stuff I'm supposed to be telling you guys about. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Liking the show helps us out. As you guys know, subscribing helps you guys just keep up with everything, all our DFS offers, our giveaways. We've got a lot of stuff going on. I was counting the links in the description below that you guys can click down there. There's like 14 different things for people to click on during this show outside of like our just, general Twitter links. It's all these different offers, a lot of good stuff in there. So make sure you're going through those, guys. Click through, take advantage of all these offers. We've got stuff from PrizePicks, our presenting sponsor today. We've got stuff from BetMGM. We've got, I've got to tell you about our new YouTube channel actually too. We launched our first sports specific YouTube channel. Not today. I think it came out earlier this week. Still says today in here. I also don't know that it's our first sports specific one. Didn't we used to have an NFL one? That's just me. Anyway, this one's called Odd Shopper Golf. So it's definitely our first Odd Shopper golf dedicated channel. Don't forget to check it out. It'll have all our regular golf content with our crew of golf analysts, including Ben Rasa, former Iowa State golfing legend Eric Supershank Lindquist, Eitan Shander, and more. We'll include betting picks, course and player analysis, parlays, one and done picks, and more. Link is in the description. Hit that subscribe. Easy for me to say. Hit that subscribe button to know when our content goes live. All right. That's all the early reads. So hit the thumbs, hit the subscribes. Make sure you're checking out that Odd Shopper channel. Adam, any overarching views for tonight's slate going in? I know we've still got a lot of things up in the air. Trade deadline a couple days ago, but still a couple guys who haven't debuted. Still a couple things in the air with that four-way trade that potentially impacts the Atlanta rotation with Sadiq Bey. Anything that you've got your eye on just kind of going into this thing that you want to talk about off the top?
Nothing really specifically, but like you said, we do have a lot of Q tags today because of the trade deadline. That's kind of messing things up, but not shouldn't be as difficult as it was Wednesday night or yesterday. So that should be a little bit better, but no, nothing in particular.
All right, let's dive on in. And yeah, we definitely saw, the chaos of this week presenting value all over the place, value galore yesterday with a lot of it coming through, some coming in weird parts, but let's see what we can find for today. So we'll dive on in. First game on deck, Miami Heat going into Orlando. Miami favored by 217 total, lowest one on the board. There's a couple in the 220s, but this one stands out as a fairly low total here. What are we seeing? Start us off on the Miami side of this one. A lot of names on the injury report for them still.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a very shorthanded Miami team the last couple of days. We don't have an actual injury report today yet since they played yesterday. So we don't know exactly who's going to be in, but likely that they're going to be shorthanded again. And as a result, they're going to look pretty good tonight. Favorable matchup as well. Right now we have 10 to 17% ownership coming in on Strus, Vincent, Butler, Hero. Strus only $3,900. Vincent, $4,500. We know Butler and Hero are going to look good. Obviously, if you get to Bam Adebayo, you're happy about that as well. But he is up to $9,300 on DraftKings, center only. We know that typically comes with quite a bit of opportunity cost also. So that's why you're not seeing much ownership come to him. But yeah, it's just going to be another slate where it's pretty appealing to get to Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to sort our boom bust tool in my sheet here, and it's just all hung up and weird. But all right, let's take a look here. Now that we've got some of these numbers, you mentioned, some of those cheap names, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent up at the top of the board if we're sorting by optimal rate landing in the 220s. Are you getting to like the Butlers, the Tyler Heroes, the Bams of the world from this team? Because they're not showing like tremendous value. They're kind of are who they are type numbers on DK, showing a little bit more in terms of the optimal rate on the FanDuel side of things. So what's your interest level in the guys that are just, the known commodity regular pieces of this rotation, the upside guys on this team?
Yeah, I think they're just kind of solid plays. Like, it's not like they're wildly underpriced. Bam in particular is up to 9,300. So I don't think you're really getting a discount at all there, but you just know you're going to get a lot of minutes from these guys. So, we also need to keep an eye on if Butler even plays. If he sits on the second half of the back-to-back, then clearly you're getting more minutes, more opportunities for everybody. But assuming he's in right now, he's just going to look like a solid option. Hero should play a lot of minutes. At 7,700, it's not like you're getting any sort of a massive discount there, but 37 minutes yesterday, 40 the game before that. Butler only played 28 minutes yesterday, but that was weird. Played 35, 36 minutes the game before. If he plays today, I assume he's getting back into the 30s. You got 34 minutes from Vincent. It is interesting that Max Strus is pulling ownership now, because 2 games ago in the exact same situation, you got like 37 minutes from Caleb Martin. You got 17 from Max Strus. Yesterday, you got 34 from Strus. You got like 20 from Martin. On average, I think you just see that sort of balance out. And Strus is cheap enough where if you get like 24 minutes from Strus, you should be fine. But it is kind of interesting that we've just seen the extremes from him and Martin in the last couple of games.
Yeah, absolutely. So something to keep our eye on there. And then if Jimmy doesn't play, what are you keeping your eye on as far as downstream impact from his absence? If that's one major potential hypothetical here.
Yeah, so they would likely be extremely shorthanded if he's out, and you would just get another of those Miami games where everybody has to play a ton. But it would make Hero and Bam look better. Like, you just get more opportunities with Butler being out. Gabe Vincent's point per minute production should go up. Minutes for Strus and Martin become a lot more stable than they are right now, because, again, right now you have one of them probably being a good play, but we don't know which one. If Butler is out, the minutes are there for them both to play a lot. Haywood Highsmith would play more as well. Not a good point per minute guy, but he is only $3,300. If Butler is out, he starts to become playable as well.
Yeah, that was a guy who, kind of popped up in my eye. We've got him projected right now at 21 minutes, and he's showing like no value on either site, despite being 4,000 on FanDuel, 3,300 on DK with multi-forward eligibility over there. But so you're thinking if he jumps up to the 28-ish minute range, something like that at 0.66 FanDuel points per minute, he becomes a little bit more playable. Like, what do you expect to get to him? Like, does he become a major part of your plans, or is he just like a 5%er type guy in terms of how much you'd look to get to him in that situation?
It's still a last guy in type play. Like, he's not a good point per minute guy. You still have Martin. We're assuming you have Martin in, you have Strus in. So it's not like he has to go play 40 minutes or anything like that. Yeah. But he would just become somebody where, in any given tournament lineup, if you needed him, he's fine.
Yeah, if that 3,300.
Whereas the Butler is in, like, I'm just going there.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. What about the other side of this one? Looking at Orlando here, looks like I think most of the regular pieces are projected in. Gary Harris is carrying a designation on this fantasy site. Questionable Gary Harris for tonight. So other than that, doesn't look like anything noteworthy. What are we seeing from Orlando on FanDuel? They're looking very normal. Actually, both sites, they're looking kind of very normal. So anybody that you've got your eye on here, and what do you think of Orlando overall?
Yeah, nothing that stands out. Nobody really pulling ownership. We have been seeing 30 to 32 minutes consistently from Markelle Fultz. He's only 5,800 on DraftKings. That's a pretty decent price tag, given that he's also not pulling any ownership. But I think it's just a situation where overall you have a healthy Orlando team. You have a slate where you're going to have a lot of shorthanded teams, a lot of value. So when you get a healthy team like this, if you get to some Fultz, some Carter, some Banchero, some Franz Wagner, any of those guys are fine in tournaments as contrarian pieces. Like, they look good enough, but they just don't stand out because you have a healthy team. You have pretty much correct pricing here. If Harris is out, it does open up some potential value. We had Jalen Suggs start and play 26 and a half minutes in Harris's absence the other day. He's still only 3,700 on DraftKings. His point per minute production goes down as a starter because he has to share the ball with Carter and Wagner and Fultz and Banchero, and those are all relatively high usage guys, but the playing time would make him look like a decent value. You also got a little bit more playing time for Cole Anthony off the bench. He played 24 minutes in that game. Still didn't crack the closing lineup. They went with Suggs, but it would make Anthony and Suggs look a bit better if Gary Harris is out.
All right. Yeah. And like I said, looking up and down the optimal column, the boom column in our tools here, there's nobody that really stands out. But what does stand out about these guys to me, and why they're typically at least tournament playable, stick them into some lineups here and there, basically this entire team is around a 1 fantasy point per minute, 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute on the FanDuel scale. A guy like, a minimum minutes in Jonathan Isaac even pops up to 1.53, which is just bananas for his profile, but no minutes there. But I do like getting to pieces from this team at times because they play, a fantasy friendly game across the rotation. It's just that the minutes are sort of flat. Nobody's really spiking for minutes. So thinking it through, like, is there any path for a guy like Jonathan Isaac with those points per minute rate that we like to get more minutes in this game if you get a couple pieces out, or is he just going to be floating in that 12 to 16 minute range?
Yeah, I mean, as far as we know, he's just kind of limited to that extremely low playing time. So, he's somebody where on specific slates, I could see like hoping to just, get a bunch of fantasy points in his 12 minutes. But I don't think this is one of them just because we're going to have other places we can go.
Yeah. And then we know that the front court opened up a little bit here. So do you have any favorite direction that this front court's going to go in the, now that there's no Mo Bamba here kind of jamming things up? Does that mean anything for you for Bol? Are you seeing a little bit more upside for him from that? What do you make of that situation?
No, I don't think it really has an impact because you're still getting 48 minutes from Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner combined. So that's where all the center minutes are going. Bamba wasn't even always in the rotation here. So when Wagner and Carter were both healthy. So I don't think it really has an impact there. They're not playing Bol at the 5. You got 15 minutes last game. I think he's kind of just locked into that 15 to 18 minute role.
Yeah. All right. I think that one clears this game up for us pretty much here. So let's move on to the next one. Indy going into Washington, 234 point total in this one, fairly healthy. Indy 5.5 point dogs coming in. Let's see what they've got on the injury board here. It doesn't look like anything of note really stands out to me. So what do you got your eye on the Pacers side of this one?
Yeah, nothing that looks great. Benedict Matherin's pulling the most ownership right now on DraftKings. He is down to only $4,600, which is a cheap price tag, but you also just have a healthier Indiana team. Less consistent minutes for him makes it difficult to trust him. He played 32 minutes yesterday or 33 minutes yesterday, but that was also a game where Tyrese Halliburton didn't play in the fourth quarter. Aaron Nesmith didn't play in the fourth quarter. Buddy Hield barely played down the stretch. So it wasn't a true blowout, but Indiana just closed with weird lineups. So you can't read too much into that, but at the same time, he did play about 14 minutes in the first half. If you're going to get, let's call it 26 to 28 minutes from Matherin at 4,600, he does make some sense. We actually have him going under owned right now. Nembhard at 3,900. You're never looking to play him when Halliburton is in, but that is a cheap price tag for somebody that can play 30 minutes or so. He's projected to go under owned as well, but there's nothing that really stands out here. Obviously, if you get the Turner, Halliburton, Hield, that's fine, but they're pretty much correctly priced.
Yeah, Matherin does look like he's showing a little bit more upside on the FanDuel slate. He's coming up 33% optimal, basically doubling up the optimal percentage across sites. He's 16.2% optimal on DK. But you are getting him at nicer leverage there. Like you said, you pointed that out, and he's only 10% owned over there. So nice piece either way, just plays differently from site to site with Ben Matherin. But yeah, not a ton of other stuff. A lot of these guys just kind of looking how they are. I'd take shares of Tyrese Halliburton, obviously. What about Miles Turner here? Is he a piece for you? If he comes up in lineups, 7,600 on DK, only 6% optimal, but we know there's some upside there. So any love for a Turner?
Yeah, it's just a low probability, high upside tournament play. If you get a lineup with Miles Turner, sure. He's always got a nice ceiling, but he's just correctly priced at 7,600. Like you said, reflected in the boom bust tool. He's going under owned in that he's projected for 2% ownership with a 6% chance of being optimal, but still, 94% of the time you don't want Miles Turner. So not somebody you're building around or anything like that.
Yep. And you do see just kind of the through line for what we're talking about there too, the boom score being essentially double the optimal rate, a little bit of a chance for some ceiling, but yeah, probably not the piece that you want, even if he does get to that ceiling side. So looking through this on the Washington side of things, we still got Kyle Kuzma out for today. Looks like all the other pieces are going to be here. Some guys popping a little bit more on the FanDuel side of things, but we've got some double digit optimal rates, some decent looking boom score probabilities across Washington here, including, some of the stars and then some of the odds and ends. So what do you make of the Wiz here?
First time in a while that we've actually seen ownership come into the Wizards, and it's kind of weird. I think they look good. I'm kind of surprised that they're getting as much ownership and look as good in terms of optimal percentage as they do. But you're likely to get 32-ish minutes from Bradley Beal. He is cheap enough. Like he's at 7,400, he's certainly playable. Again, I'm kind of surprised he's getting the ownership that he is. But you get a high ceiling for Kristaps Porzingis. He's about a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy, should give you 34 minutes or so. Avdia at 5,900, coming off of a huge game, pulling 15%. No issues with that. I think he's a little bit expensive. So again, like I'm kind of surprised he's getting the ownership that he is, but started and played 36.5 minutes last game. I assume he'll start in place of Kuzma again today. They went to him instead of Kispert in that game, which is obviously good for his playing time. But yeah, like it's a good matchup. I like Beal, Porzingis, Avdia. You can get to Daniel Gafford as a contrarian play as well at 5,500. I'm just kind of surprised there's populars there.
Yeah, I think there's just, there's the decent amount of upside. There's a decent amount of per minute scoring. It's another team with, a solid handful of guys with good per minute rates. Yeah. They're priced reasonably appropriately, and they've got a decent amount of multi-position eligibility too. So I think they just click into lineups fairly well, and you can mix and match these guys throughout a lot. There's just a lot of utility throughout this lineup, so they're kind of interesting. Guy I wanted to bring up on the FanDuel slate, just looking across sites, just wildly different as far as our probability metrics. Dylan Wright, 25-minute projection. He's 4,500 multi-guard eligible on FanDuel, 4,500 only point guard on DK. That brings him to a 24% optimal rate on FanDuel and only a 4.5% optimal rate on DK. Just extremely different. So what do you make of Dylan Wright here? Do you like him?
Not particularly. I mean, you have Monte Morris back. We got Dylan Wright starting the other day. I'm kind of surprised that Wright's projecting as well as he is, because I don't really have a lot of confidence that he plays a ton of minutes here.
Okay, so you're thinking the 25 minutes that we've got him for early in the morning might be a little high?
It might be high. Like, It could happen. You could get, let's say 28 from Morris, and so you get the 20 backup minutes for Wright, and then he plays 5 minutes alongside Morris. Like that certainly could happen, but I don't think it's a guarantee. Like you have other guards they can go to here. You have kind of a weird rotation from Washington in general, so kind of hesitant on that one.
Okay. All right. So definitely guys out there, one to flag, one to keep your eye on throughout the day, see what we do with the minutes projections we come in, see what changes and how our confidence looks going into lock. Fortunately, we've got a lot of daytime and a lot of time between now and lock to figure that stuff out. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Anything else to call out from the Washington side before we move on?
Nope.
All right, right on. Let's tell the people here real quick. We mentioned the betting, the YouTube channel, the Odd Shopper Golf channel. Let's talk real quick about BetMGM. We've got some great stuff going on with them. I'm sure you guys have heard about it by now, but we've got a promo code. It's Platinum Sub, all one word, Platinum Sub. Put it all together, all caps, all one word. That's going to get you 1 month of Stokastic plus Platinum for free when you go over and create an account at BetMGM. The beauty part is, if you're creating a new account over there, you're making your first deposit, you're following all of our steps, they're going to give you up to $1,000 of first bet insurance on your first bet. So if you want to go over and just drop in, 10, 15 bucks, make a $10, $15 bet, they're going to cover you on that. If you lose it, they're going to give you site credit back to make another one. If you go up to $1,000 and you lose that bet, they're going to give you site credit back. You're going to be able to recoup that funds and bet it again and go back and get another bite at the apple. It's a pretty great promo to get people started at their site. We've got links in the description. Go through them. If you feel like you have a gambling problem or somebody that has a gambling problem out there, guys, and a lot of people get underwater. It's very easy for that to happen. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Reach out, get yourself some help. The legal age for gambling in most states is 21, so make sure that you are of the correct legal age. Otherwise, you might get yourself in some trouble. Outside of that, you got to deposit at least $10. You've got to make your first bet, and that's got to be a first paid bet. It's got to settle, and then all the things come through, and you get your free month of Stokastic. So pretty great deal going on with our pals over at BetMGM. Make sure you're checking that out. We'll talk about a little bit more business, including some PrizePicks stuff coming up in a sec, but let's go to the next game. We have the Denver Nuggets, 8.5-point favorites going into Charlotte, 235-point total here. Interesting one, I think, on the board fantasy-wise. It looks like, I'm not sure if these are up to date. What do we have in terms of, it looks like Jamal Murray questionable, Aaron Gordon also potentially questionable coming into this one. So what do you make of this? And do we think that all the trade pieces are going to be in play for this one?
Yeah, so we have those guys questionable, which obviously is big news. Thomas Bryant listed as questionable as well, so we don't know if we're going to have him. That shouldn't really matter. He's, I assume, just playing the backup minutes to Jokic.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't matter. But the Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon pieces are obviously huge. If Murray is out, it makes Jokic look better. It makes Gordon look better. It makes Porter look better. Bruce Brown becomes a good option, most likely moving into the starting lineup again at 5,100. If Murray is in, all of those guys just kind of look well, all those guys except Jokic, kind of just look mediocre. You have Aaron Gordon up to 7,100 now, Porter sitting at 6,200, Brown at 5,100 off the bench wouldn't be exciting. So if the questionable guys are in, Jokic looks fantastic. I love getting to Jokic here. Great spot. Obviously a great player. But other than him, nothing's really interesting. If you get to a little bit of Aaron Gordon or Jamal Murray, fine. They obviously have high ceilings, but they're also priced up. It's if Gordon is out or Murray is out that things start to look interesting, particularly Murray, because it makes, he's the second highest usage guy on the team. So it opens up quite a bit. If Gordon is out, it still opens up a little bit. Like Michael Porter Jr. looks a bit better. You would still probably get Bruce Brown in the starting lineup, but definitely need to know more about Murray and Gordon's status.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are going to be keys to this team and unlocking what they're going to look like going in. And yeah, like you're saying, Gordon and Murray are just right now, we've got them projected in playing their normal minutes and they look fine. They're perfectly playable, but there's no real upside showing through, where Jokic obviously blasting through the top of everything as usual. Is Bruce Brown your favorite piece if we don't get Murray? Is he like your prime target and a guy that you would expect to float into like a ton of lineups, or is he just kind of 10, 20% value cut to kind of play? Like, how strong is that value?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's good value. Played 33 and a half minutes as a starter last game. He's averaged around 32, I think, as a starter this year. Obviously, 2 games ago was a fluke where he got injured early on, and then you had a 40-point win, so he didn't play down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, he's got multi-position eligibility. He's likely to give you 32, 33 minutes. He's not a bad point per minute guy, so he'd look like a really useful piece.
Yeah. And then guy MPJ, 0.93 fantasy points per minute on the FanDuel scale, but gives you clunkers from time to time, and certainly did that the last time out. And he's priced in the 6,200 on DK, 66 on FanDuel. Doesn't show us any kind of value. Is he just kind of take him where you get him, small doses kind of a play until that price comes down or something changes here?
Yeah, if everybody is in, I don't really have much interest in him. If you start getting guys out, then I think he looks good. Without Jamal Murray on the floor this year, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute. If you also take Aaron Gordon off the floor, I honestly have no idea what he's at, so I'm looking right now. But 1.07 DraftKings points per minute with a 24.5% usage rate in 251 minutes. So he's just somebody where, like, we know that he's a good player and can be a good fantasy producer. It's just a matter of he's going to be behind Jokic and Murray and possibly Gordon in any given game. But as you start taking those guys out, he's going to look better and better because he can step into a bigger role.
Okay. So another guy to keep our eye on potentially for a little bit of upside as we get closer and get some of that news in. What about the Charlotte side of this one? We saw Mark Williams hopefully seizing this job, definitely a fantasy darling in his limited minutes through the first part of the season, and now stepped into minutes last night, 30.8 minutes, put up 30.1 fantasy points on the FanDuel scale, 1.27 fantasy points per minute for the season, drawing a ton of ownership across both sites. What do you make of him? And then what about the rest of this team?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how to get away from Mark Williams at $3,500. He's a good point per minute guy. He played starter minutes, like you said, got about 30 minutes yesterday. Even if he played like 25 or 26, he would look fantastic at 3,500. So I think I saw somebody in chat mention him going up against Jokic here at high ownership. And I don't know if they were just saying it's interesting or if they were alluding to potential foul trouble. But like, that's kind of the thing. Even if you do get some foul trouble and like Mark Williams plays 23 or 24 minutes, you're getting a good game out of him most likely. He's just a really, really good point per minute guy, 1.19 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. And knowing that the plan is for him to play 30 minutes, apparently, I have no idea how you get away from that. If you want to go to Nick Richards as a pivot, so like, to me, that's the way. If you're getting away from Mark Williams, and I said this yesterday too, to me, this is a spot where you play Nick Richards instead of trying to do something else, because Mark Williams is just so clearly underpriced if things go according to plan that it's really difficult to construct a lineup that would be good in a normal Mark Williams game. And if you get a not normal Mark Williams game, that means you have a $3,600 Nick Richards playing a bunch of minutes. One of these guys almost has to have a good game, because if they both play 24 minutes, they would both look good. And if one of them, obviously you expect it to be Williams, but one of them plays 28, 30 minutes, they're going to look like somebody you have to have. So I never recommend locking a player, but I just don't really see how a Charlotte center doesn't smash their price today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like you said, we barely ever, and I never really say lock on anybody either. It's not something I do, but I just think you're just going to, through natural process, just get so much of this Mark Williams side of this. And you're right. It's a great situation for that just direct handoff, because if he doesn't get there, it's so likely that Nick Richards is going to get there for you. And it's just a product of price. Nobody's saying these guys are going to go out there and be better than Jokic out there. They just have to do enough for their price to get us to where we need to be, that where everything else we've built into our tournament lineups is going to get there. So yeah, I love that play. I really like the idea of putting aside some shares for Nick Richards for that explicit purpose. What about some of these other pieces, the Terry Roziers, the LaMelo Balls, the Gordon Haywards of the world? Any of those guys coming up as relevant parts for you?
LaMelo and Rozier both look fine at their respective salaries, not priorities, but just guys that you're going to get to here and there. You know, the type of ceiling that LaMelo gives you. Rozier at 7,500 is just a pretty normal, correct price tag, but you should get a bunch of minutes from him as well. So the center spots, Mark Williams specifically, is where you're really, really going to be prioritizing here. But getting to some LaMelo, getting to some Richards looks fine, but getting to LaMelo and Rozier, is fine as well.
Yeah, and they're showing that, minimal, or not minimal. They're showing like mid-range value on both sites in the a little bit over 10 in the optimal rates, a little bit more in the upside column. Like if we're talking about boom score probability, their potential upside for price, and you get decent positioning at multi-guard with Terry Rozier. So some clickable pieces there. Anything else from this one to call out?
Nope.
All righty. Let's talk San Antonio Spurs, major dogs, 13-point dogs going into Atlanta, 240-point total in this one. What are we seeing on the Spurs side of things? I'll just let you handle the many, many names that are listed on what I'm looking at here. So what do you see for the Spurs?
A lot of Q tags. And
yeah.
No idea what to do with them. We had yesterday, Jones and Sohan went through shoot around, and then an hour later were ruled out. Keldon Johnson didn't play either. So you got a really, really shorthanded Spurs team. We have no idea what that's going to look like today. My assumption is that you get these guys back and that they just were sitting because it was the first half of the back-to-back, and it's the Spurs, and they have no reason to care at all about playing their guys. Mm-hmm. So assuming that they're back, you get another really, 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 really good center option. Zach Collins at 4,100. He is the answer to why you wouldn't have 100% of the Charlotte guys, because you also want a lot of Zach Collins, but you also want a lot of Jokic. So, that's why it's not like you're not locking them, but it does come down to Jokic is likely to have a massive game and could easily be the highest scorer on the slate. And then two of the absolute best point per dollar values are Williams and Collins. And so it's just, I find it really difficult to get creative at center today, unless you're doing the Nick Richards pivot. I find it difficult. And, we talked about it before. It's not a slate where I see myself just being I'm going to play Bam at center at low ownership and not have two of Jokic, Collins, Williams. It's just really difficult to make that move today. But yeah, Zach Collins looks great at 4,100. He's the starter now. He's a good point per minute guy. We know that. And now Jakob Poeltl's gone. So he looks fantastic. Keldon Johnson at 6,800 is pulling ownership. No real issue there. About a 30% usage rate without Devin Vassell this year. Kind of surprised he's getting as much ownership as he is, but he is Ford eligible, which helps. Devontae Graham played. I'm confused. So I'm looking at the rotations from yesterday. And it says 36.5.
36.6 as well.
Did that game go to overtime?
Yes, I think that one did.
Okay, that makes sense.
Is that the game? Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, yeah, because there's no overtime designation where I'm looking, and I'm just looking at the rotations, and I'm like, that is not 36 minutes. But yeah, Devontae Graham at a cheap price tag, just playing a bench role, even if he gives you 24 minutes, he's going to be a good option as well.
Yeah, that is the game that went to overtime. Yep, Pistons Spurs 138-131 monster scores. So Zach Collins, definitely a big part of my plans. And like you're describing, I just expect every FanDuel lineup as I'm scrolling to the bottom of it, looking at it on my phone, I'm going to be pretty sure of what's going to be in those power forward and center spots, because Collins does have power forward eligibility over there. So it's just going to be rotating through, some Jokic and some Mark Williams at the center spot. And I'll have a ton of Zach Collins in the power forward. Similar lineup construction, at least as far as that goes, to what we saw last night, which yielded just a ton of value, major upside scoring. FanDuel scoring went into, I think it was in the 460s somewhere, which is very high end scoring. So I think we're going to have another big night that way. You mentioned Devontae Graham in here, and we kind of stopped in talking about his minutes, but it looks like he did put up 39-1 in that 36-6 that he played. So over a fantasy point per minute. If we're going to expect that kind of production, or maybe not a fantasy point per minute, but in the 0.9 range instead of the 0.79 range that he's put up so far this season, is there upside still there for Devontae Graham, especially at a price like today?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good point per minute guy with San Antonio. Like, we know he can do that. We've seen it in the past. And it's likely he gets opportunities here. My big hesitation, big question mark on Devontae Graham, though, especially with him pulling 20% ownership, it's just, what does the Spurs rotation look like when guys are in? Because if you get, let's say, 22, 24 minutes off the bench from Graham at 3,100, he's certainly a good value. But, you have to keep in mind that they were missing 4 guys yesterday. Yeah. So if today, if you have Keldon Johnson in, Trey Jones in, Jeremy Sohan in, 3 guys yesterday. If those guys are all in, there's still the possibility Graham plays 24 off the bench, but that's not a guarantee. Like, you could just get a rotation that prioritizes other people. It's the Spurs. They can do whatever the hell they want. So that is the scary part, especially with him getting ownership, is like, what if they just don't run the rotation that you want? And there's no reason that they have to.
Yeah, so maybe one to keep in our pocket, let the public have it a little bit today. And if it seems like it stabilizes and he's going to have some minutes, maybe we look back to it. But yeah, I agree. Typically, in a lot of those situations, you won't see a play like that getting ownership, and that's when I'll grab it for tournaments, because there's upside there if nobody's going to it, and he does fall into the minutes. But we've got the reverse situation today, so
it's just scary because, like, he's so cheap. If you were like 4K, it would be a little bit easier to just be like, yeah, okay, I'll let everybody else have it, and hopefully they get a shitty rotation. But like at 3,100, if he gets the rotation he's projected for, he's a really, really good play. Is the scary part? Like, he can just absolutely screw you. Yeah.
And FanDuel players like myself have the luxury of having him at 4,500 and point guard only eligibility. So don't really care about him all that much today. 2.8% optimal on the FanDuel slate today. So not a ton of love there. What about the Atlanta side of things? We mentioned coming in, some hangups with that trade as far as having Sadiq Bey available. But otherwise, it looks like most of the pieces are here, at least we've had recently. So what do you make of the Atlanta side?
Yeah, I mean, Trae Young still looks very reasonably priced at 9,500. We know he gives you a nice ceiling, obviously a good player. He's the only guy really pulling ownership here. Clint Capella, it's the same issue you're going to have with like every center not named Jokic, Williams, Collins today. Does he have a ceiling at 5,900? Sure. Is he likely to end up being a useful center option given the way, this slate looks? No, not at all. So tough to get there. John Collins is cheap, should play 30 minutes. He's just not very good. But if you get to him as a contrarian option, I think that's fine. Trae Young, the clear guy that you get to first here, though.
Yeah, Trae is the guy, showing a lot of value across both sites. DeJounte Murray putting up a little value on the FanDuel slate, 8,600 multi-guard eligible, showing us 13% optimal rate over there. So a little bit more interest in him on FanDuel, I think, than over on DK, where he's essentially half that. As far as, are you surprised that John Collins is still on this team after the trade deadline?
Kind of. Like, I don't pay a ton of attention to NBA trades or what teams should do, but yeah, kind of. Just because like there's been rumors about him being traded for years, and there were plenty this year as well. So yeah, kind of surprised he's still here.
Yeah, same here. It just seemed like the year that he was finally going to get his exodus out of Atlanta here. But yeah, interesting that he's still here, and just a lot of regular sized moving parts, I think, for this team as far as the Bogdanoviches of the world, the Hunters of the world. So not a ton to talk about here. You ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah. So Damian Doval asked, is Brandon going to stay in the starting lineup or go to the bench once everyone comes back? Probably to the bench if they're all back. Yesterday, they were missing Jones, Langford, Keldon, and Sohan. If all 4 of those guys are back, I expect them to be starters along with Zach Collins.
There you go. All right. And what about the other comment in chat that guys are going to try hard now that the trade deadline is passed because they didn't want to try hard last week?
I'm not allowed to say.
Yep. We share that opinion. All right, let's move on to the next one. Actually, you know what? Let's knock out some quick blurb about our pals at PrizePicks. Joker's on the floor dreaming about something. He's probably dreaming about all the great action over at PrizePicks. If you can hear him whining, that's what he's thinking about right now. We've got another promo code going with these guys. They're a great sponsor of ours. The promo code is AWESOMO. It's all one word. It's all in caps. It's AWESOMO. That was our old name. We're Stokastic now, but the promo code still AWESOMO. And that's going to get you up to $100 first match deposit bonus with our pals at PrizePicks. If you're unfamiliar at PrizePicks, it's a site that uses prop-based contests. There's no sharks. There's no optimizers. There's no mass entries. You can win up to 10 times your entry fee if you get all 5 of your picks right on a 5-player card. You're playing against the house. You can use your knowledge of multiple sports to make cross-sport entries. So if you've got a pick in mind from basketball, you've got some stuff you like from the Super Bowl or the big game. We're not sure if we're allowed to say Super Bowl, but I said it and I said it again. So come at us, NFL. Anyway, you can use your knowledge of cross sports to make multi-sport entries to fill out your cards. And again, win up to 10 times your entry fee. There's a link in the video description to head over to prizepicks.com, or you can download the PrizePicks app in the App Store or on Google Play. Use your free PrizePicks NBA prop tool over at Stokastic. Use our, I said it's our. Use our free NBA PrizePicks prop tool to help you make your best selections. You can find that over at Stokastic. Just go to the NBA drop down, drop it on down there. There's some links for the various sites, and it's pretty easy to find. We've also got some just great prop-based tools across Stokastic and across OddsShopper. So very easy to put these cards together with our locked-in win rates and figure out the best way to fill out your card and win up to 10 times your money. So we're going to forego making picks because I can't access PrizePicks. So we'll just jump back into talking about this slate now. But make sure you guys are checking out PrizePicks. Promo code AWESOMO get you up to $100 first deposit match bonus. Adam, the Utah Jazz are coming into New York City to play my Knicks. 228-point total in this one. Jazz are 5.5-point dogs. Knicks on a back-to-back. Jazz, did they play? They played last night as well. We have Jordan Clarkson. Didn't go last night. Created some value there. Potentially back in the lineup. Potentially still 6. So what are you seeing from the Utah side of this?
Another clear value option that looks fantastic, and I don't really know how to get away from it. In Colin Sexton at 4K. Just should be the starter now with Mike Conley out. Regardless of Jordan Clarkson's status, he's going to look good. You had Agbaji in the starting lineup in Clarkson's place yesterday, so had nothing to do with Sexton. Played 37 minutes. Looks amazing at 4K. I have no idea how to get away from him. Taylor Horton-Tucker is pulling ownership as well, about 12% at 3,300. If Clarkson is in, Horton-Tucker's okay. Like, he's likely to give you 20, 22 minutes off the bench. If Clarkson's out, though, you do probably get a few extra minutes for him, which would make him look better. Kelly Olynyk is still $4,800. That's a good price for him. You're likely to get 28 to 30 minutes. He played 32 last night, but does have some foul issues. So on average, as a starter this year, he's played about 28 minutes, but he's about a point per minute guy, 4,800. Good price tag there. So Horton-Tucker and Olynyk are secondary options here. Sexton is a very, very clear priority. And then after that, there's nothing that's too exciting. Kessler, Clarkson, Markkanen, all certainly playable in tournaments for the upside that they offer. But, with Kessler, you run into that issue at center where he's not named Jokic, Collins, or Williams. Clarkson and Markkanen are just kind of correctly priced, but certainly give you ceilings. It's just tough to get to them. But Colin Sexton, the very clear top option.
Yeah, Sexton for sure, drawing 56.7% ownership on that DK slate, but approaching 40% optimal with a 50% boom score probability, multi-guard eligible at 4,000. I just don't care about that individual ownership. I'm curious what you make of him over on FanDuel, though, because he's a $5,500 shooting guard only, and he's drawing 26.8% ownership at only 12% optimal. So he's not the same piece on the FanDuel slate to me. What do you make of him over there?
I still think he's really, really good, but yeah, he's not the same piece. He's $1,500 more expensive on FanDuel. So not the same piece, and probably going a little bit over-owned, but I still think he's really good. Like, you're likely just getting low to mid 30s from him. He's a good point per minute guy. So I think he's underpriced on FanDuel. He's just not the absurd
ridiculously underpriced. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then Kessler, with his price 7,200 on the FanDuel slate now, 5,700 on DK. He's a guy who, with his point per minute upside, I think could be kind of a spoiler kind of a guy. We saw that with what's his face, the center from Detroit last night in that overtime game, put up a monster score, and I think spoiled some of the center upside from some of the other value plays. he could be that guy in a per minute sense, but I don't think at the price, with that price having gone up, at least on FanDuel especially, I don't think he's going to play that spoiler role here. So I'm not really drawn to him. What about Larry Markkinen on this one? Because he's showing a little bit of value on the FanDuel slate, and less so because he's 9,200 over on DK. So another guy who's just wildly different price, 7,600 on FanDuel.
Yeah, that's a really crazy price for Markkinen on FanDuel. Yeah. And he's getting ownership as a result. 24% chance of being optimal, 33% ownership. 7,600 is a massive discount on Larry Markkinen, and he looks very, very good on FanDuel.
Yep, 1.16 FanDuel points per minute. So definitely a guy I got my eye on over there. What about my Knickerbockers here? I think we're expecting Josh Hart to play today. That was the word on the street, but no idea what his role is going to be in being inserted into this team. I do expect him to get some minutes. I just don't know where exactly they're going to come from, how he's going to fit in. Otherwise, Knicks mostly healthy outside of Mitchell Robinson, who's missed a bunch of games. So what do you make of the Knicks here?
Nothing too exciting. I am curious to see who Josh Hart takes minutes from, but it's a good matchup. It's just a healthy team and correctly priced team. So, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, if you get to them here and there in tournament lineups, nothing wrong with that. It is a good matchup. They are good players. You expect them to play a lot of minutes, but, they're not one of the teams that is shorthanded or has very clearly mispriced guys. So there's just nothing that's a priority. I don't really see any way to get to anything other than Brunson or Randle.
Yeah, and those are the guys that are, popping for value across both sites for sure. Brunson showing the most value on the FanDuel slate, but drawing a ton of ownership over there. He's a popular piece on FanDuel a lot of the time. Multi-guard eligible, only 7,900. 8,600, a lot less popular, but definitely very usable on the DK slate. Randall is what he is. The guy I wanted to just ping you about here real quick, because he's got power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which makes him a little bit interesting to me anyway, is Isaiah Hartenstein. 4,800 power forward and center eligibility. Obviously, if he gets into that mix, and he's center only on DK, so you kind of cross him off as being part of that mess that we've talked about a bunch of times now. But with that power forward eligibility, is there upside for him? 4,800 on FanDuel?
Yeah, there's some. The minutes, you still can't really feel totally safe with the minutes for him, but he has been playing more recently. Power forward eligibility does make him at least playable. I think he looks okay. I still don't think he's like a great player or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And okay, sometimes is all I'm looking for with a tournament lineup as far as going in. 12% optimal, 10% boom score probability, a little bit of upside. And I do think, he's part of what Tibbs likes to do. We've seen him get some closing run in these roles, so picking up a little bit more minutes. And he's just an active guy out there. So I just like what he does on the court when he's out there. But obviously a little bit of just watching a lot of Knicks games for me creeping in around the edges there. Anything else to talk about here? Any love for quickly, anybody like that, or just too much risk with, potentially giving up some minutes to Josh Hart?
Yeah, I mean, the rest of these guys, like the only other guy that I would normally have interest in would be RJ Barrett at 6,400. I'm just a little concerned that Josh Hart cuts into his minutes. And at that price tag, even if it's just going from 36, 37 minutes to 32 minutes, that would be enough for me to not really want to play Barrett. So I am, he's not a good enough play that I am willing to really take on the risk of him being a really bad play, basically. Like, we don't know how many minutes he's going to play. Maybe he's not affected at all by Hart. Maybe Hart just takes Grimes minutes. Maybe he takes Quickly's minutes. There's ways this could go. Like, what if they DNP Obi Toppin and you just get like RJ Barrett at the 4 minutes? Like, there's ways this can go where RJ Barrett's not affected. But even if he's not affected, he's just like a completely mediocre, not very good option. And if he is affected by Josh Hart, then he's just even worse. So it's just tough for me to want anything else.
Yep. And I think it's going to be a lot of frustration, even if we get back to, a 9-man rotation with Tibbs. I just think the way he's going to throw these minutes around from night to night based on, hot hand, who's playing hard for him on D, the way that he perceives the game, it's just going to get kind of messy with these Knicks for a while here. So we'll see how that goes. That should be fun to keep our eye on, but let's move on to the next game here. The Chicago Bulls, 5.5-point dogs going into Cleveland, second lowest total on the board, 221-point total. Obviously, kind of a slog with Cleveland out there most games. But some good pieces with this one. Garland and Mitchell potentially, both have question marks. I don't know if we've got anything official on both of those guys. On the Chicago side, looks like we're relatively healthy coming into this one. So what do we make of the Bulls here to start us off?
Nothing really at all that stands out. You have a healthy team. It's kind of just what you normally talk about with the Bulls when they're all in. Goes without saying that the Rosen, Vooch, Levine all can give you big games, but they're also correctly priced. They play big minutes, but there's just no real value there. If you want to use them as a contrarian piece in a tournament lineup and hope that you get the massive Zach LaVine game or the massive DeRozan game, like sure, it's always nice when you can differentiate a lineup by playing a really, really good player, but they're just priced how they should be for everybody being in. Caruso at 3,600 loses value with DeRozan back. Drummond at 3,200, just not the slate that I'm trying to get 12 minutes or 13 minutes of Andre Drummond. So this to me is one of the least appealing teams on the slate.
Yeah, and they're really showing it in the probability columns. I mean, single digits and dropping into the low single digits for most of these guys. So not a ton to talk about there. Enjoy your shares of Zach LaVine and DeRozan if you get to them. I'm sure I'll have a few here and there, but not showing a ton of upside. Other side of this one, Cleveland's. What do you make of the Mitchell and Garland situations to start us off?
Yes, I mean, we need
actual information.
Yeah, actual information on them. If everybody's in for Cleveland, then it's kind of like Chicago. Nothing looks great, except they do have a better matchup than Chicago. So like I'd be more likely to get to Mitchell Garland than I would LaVine DeRozan on the other side. But it's the same kind of thing where if they're healthy, they're just kind of correctly priced across the board. It's not a slate where I expect to really be getting to Jared Allen just because of the landscape of the center position. Evan Mobley at 7,400 is fine, but kind of a correct price there. If you start getting guys ruled out though, that's where, you could have value open up. If Mitchell and Garland were both out again, you can go back to a $3,300 Howell Neto, $4,200 Rubio, Karis LeVert at 5,400 would look really good. But assuming those guys are in, this just isn't a very appealing team.
Yeah. And just seeing the layout of this slate, like as you said it, I was just saying, oh yeah, $3,300 Neto, that's going to hit the board. It just feels like that play is going to be in our lives too. And we're going to have one of these absurd value at every possible corner. It's kind of slates, but keep your eye on the news for that one. And yeah, nothing really standing out. I'll probably get a little bit of the Mobley and Allen pairing, just because they both have power forward eligibility on the FanDuel slate. They're both fairly priced, but correctly priced for them. So you just kind of, take what you get type shares of those guys as well. So another spot, not all that interesting to talk about here. Let's jump to something that is actually interesting. Let me tell you guys about this deal that we've got going on with our pals at Breaks of God. Celebrate the Super Bowl with a free autographed Travis Kelce, AJ Brown, or Devontae Smith mini helmet. Click the link in the description below to learn how to enter the giveaway over at Breaks of God. The 3 winners are going to be selected during a live box break on Instagram on Super Bowl Sunday. Breaks of God is the latest sports card collecting trend to catch fire, and it's how sports card collectors of all ages are building high-value card collections without huge investments or risk. Make sure to keep up with all the latest box breaks and card trends by liking and following them on Instagram at Breaks of God. I'm not going to do the Lofty voice. I can't compete. Let's talk about the next game on deck here. We've got Los Angeles Lakers with some new pieces to show off. Going into Golden State, playing the Warriors, 237.5 points on the board in this one. What do we make of the Lakers side? Start us off there.
Yeah, so I mean, this is one where we kind of have to see how pieces fit together. We are expecting the guys that the Lakers got in the trade to play today. They're not on the injury report. They had said pretty much out of the gate that we expect those guys. So going to be a different Lakers rotation, not going to be the same value that we had from the Lakers last time out. And that makes them look pretty shitty from a fantasy standpoint. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, you're never wrong for playing them. And we know that there's plenty of value today. The problem with Davis is that he is center only, but he at least gives you that upside where he could be the highest scorer. Like he is capable of scoring more fantasy points than Jokic. He's not likely to, especially if LeBron is in, but he's at least capable of it. And that's kind of how you're viewing the center position today is you either need the highest scorer overall or you need ridiculously good value. And so that's why like these mid-range guys, like if you get, 40 points from Capella, like who cares? But, Davis is at least capable of going out there and putting up like 70, 75. So if you want to get to him in tournaments, fine. LeBron's going to be way easier to get to. Point guard, small forward eligibility at 10-8. He's the only guy really pulling ownership here. Beasley, 4,400. Vanderbilt, 4K. Russell, 7,300. If you want to roll the dice on any of those guys and just hope that they just walk into big games, fine. But like you have to keep in mind, like D'Angelo Russell has a different role on this team, or will have a different role on this team than he did with Minnesota. He's a good fit on this team because he's a good shooter, gives them another scoring option, but he only really had to contend with Anthony Edwards as a scorer on Minnesota. So it allowed him to produce, solid fantasy points per minute. Now he has to contend with Davis and LeBron. It's not likely he's as good at, fantasy option, and he's still 7,300. So it's just really tough to get to anything here that isn't LeBron or maybe Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. With D'Lo, what do you see his assist rate doing on this team? It's a 27.4 for the season. Do you see him facilitating more or less with this team?
My guess is less.
That's what I was thinking as well. And just kind of using.
I'm assuming that they want to use him more off ball as, like a spot up shooter because he can do that. And that's what the Lakers have badly needed all year long. So that's, I expect that to be his role. I expect that to be Beasley's role. So him playing off ball more should lower his assist percentage.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly how I was picturing it. And, with that in mind and an expectation of a decent amount of minutes for a guy like Malik Beasley, I think he's a usable part today. I'm not saying, go out there and grab yourself 40% of Malik Beasley by any means, but in tournaments at 4,900 small forward shooting guard eligible on FanDuel, 4,400 small forward shooting guard eligible on DK, I do think there's at least some expectation of upside there if he just goes out, has that high volume shooting game and takes a lot of looks, which I think he might do here. So
of the non-Davis LeBron guys, Beasley's the most interesting to me.
Yep. Okay, cool. That's one I want to definitely put a little bookmark on. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about this team, because I do think it's interesting across sites, AD, power forward eligible on FanDuel, drawing 13% optimal rate. And more interestingly, only owned at 5.8%. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, much easier to get to him on FanDuel than on DraftKings because of that.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll see how that comes together. It'll be very interesting to see where the value comes in getting to him and Jokic type lineups and see if you could put those two guys together and go super starsy scrubsy. So we'll see how all that comes out in the wash. But let's jump to the other side of this one. Golden State, Jordan Poole showing some value up at the top of the board. Wiggins, a lot of these guys looking kind of how they normally do. Any love for any of these Golden State pieces?
Good matchup. So you have that. Jordan Poole is 7,500. So he still looks good. Why is he projected for no ownership?
Oh, weird. Yeah.
I don't know. He's not on the injury report. It's just an early in the day thing, I guess.
Right.
We have him with a 21% chance of being optimal on DraftKings. That makes sense. He looks really, really good. Like he's just going to play big minutes. He's a mid-30s usage guy without Steph Curry. He's going to look really good. So really like that. Wiggins, Draymond, Clay, all good options as well. Poole's my favorite of the group, but all of those guys are going to look good as well. We don't know who the last guy in the starting lineup is going to be. 2 games ago, it was Kuminga. Last game, it was Looney. If it's Looney, it's really tough to get there just because he's a center. He is cheap at 4,300, but, just not the same point per minute guy that Zach Collins is. But he at least, has some chance of beating Zach Collins at that price point. It's just not a very good chance. If it's Kuminga at 3,600, he does have power forward eligibility, so he would look like a good value.
Okay. And then looking across sites again, Kevon Looney, another guy with center and power forward eligibility who's showing a little bit more value on the FanDuel slate going across site to site. So that second power forward slot is going to be super interesting on FanDuel today, depending what we're clicking through in the other two. But anything else from here? Any like Klay Thompson, anybody like that kind of stands out, or just kind of they are who they are? Yeah,
they are who they are. Like you get a very high ceiling for Klay, Curry being out certainly doesn't hurt him. Jordan Poole is typically going to be the higher usage guy, but you're just going to get those games where Klay can't miss. And he is shooting guard small forward on FanDuel, which is nice, on DraftKings as well. So you can get him in the maximum number of roster spots there, but he is up to 8K. So it's just like he's got a very high ceiling. He's just correctly priced. Like he should not be more expensive than Jordan Poole is the problem.
Okay, that's fair. And I think that's, it's probably showing through in our probability metrics with how those two guys stack up against one another. So makes a lot of sense there, but maybe you get him a little bit under owned because he's a little bit more expensive that way. So kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind there for tournaments. Let's talk real quick, gang. What's interesting to do with the rest of your Saturday, despite the fact that it looks like it's a pretty nice day, at least where I live here in New Jersey, and I might venture outside, take the dog for a walk. But something that you can do between now and lock is jump on the site and check out our lineup generator and just mess around with these different values, move pieces in and out, see how these values work with one another. We've got all sorts of different lineups. Our cutting edge algorithms analyze player data and trends to help you make the best choices for your lineup. It's an easy to use interface. You can have lineups built in seconds, so you don't have to spend hours and hours, but you can spend those hours just taking a look through how the slate works across different lineups by using the lineup generator. That's what I really like to do. Get into the odds and ends, get into the dirty corners of the slate and really see what this thing looks like when you change different pieces out for other ones. So you can do that with the lineup generator. You get an edge on your opponents by using our powerful contest simulations. It's got new features in it. You asked, we delivered. Player locking is now live on the NBA lineup generator. Based on your selected metric, we do return the top 10 players directly from our Platinum Boom Bust tool that you can lock on all your lineups. NBA lineup generator is $9 a week, guys. It is killer value. We have people winning contests with this thing. We have people tweeting us all the time with 5-figure wins that they say came directly out of the lineup generator. Can't endorse it any stronger than that. Let's move on to the next game. We have last game on deck. Well, show flew by today. We're actually kind of hitting our time. Dallas Mavericks, 1.5-point dogs going into Sacramento, if I wrote that correctly. 235-point total in this one. I think we've got a question mark on Luka, but he said he wants to play today. Banged up his heel, I think, playing pickup. Was the report I saw, but wants to play today. So what do you make of Luka? What do you make of Dallas here? Starts off there.
Yeah, so I mean, if Luka's in, I don't think there's much to like from Dallas because Luka's still priced up and he's going to be a really good fantasy option still. I mean, it's still Luka, but Kyrie's going to cut into that a bit. Like, it's just very difficult for Luka to maintain a 38% usage rate playing with Kyrie Irving. So he's just kind of going to be overpriced. He's still going to give you some monster games. And, you know, at low ownership in a good matchup against Sacramento, you can still take shots on him in tournaments. But I think it's pretty safe to say his price tag will be lower in 2 weeks than it is right now. So, you know, tough to really prioritize that. But I also don't want to pay 10-4 for Kyrie if Luka's in. If Luka's out, I like getting the Kyrie at 10-4. I wouldn't really like anything else, but Kyrie would look pretty interesting. But assuming Luka's in, get some shares of Luka. Nothing, you know, don't go crazy on it, but still a very high ceiling. But outside of that, just no real interest in Dallas despite the good matchup.
Yeah, and this team just, you know, across the board showing flat single digit and, you know, sub 1% optimal rates on a lot of these guys. Just not a lot of fantasy relevance. And you and I have talked about it a few times. I brought it up on a number of shows. This is just one of those teams, and the pieces have changed a little bit over the last week and so, or so. But so many guys on this team are just, you know, 0.7, 0.5, just low end per minute production guys. So even when they do step into roles, it's tough to get to some of these guys. So I don't love a lot of pieces there. I guess if I had a few shares of Christian Wood, Timmy Hardaway, I would take them, but no real love for that. And not going out of my way. What about the Sacramento side? Looks like Malik Monk is showing a ton of value at the top of the FanDuel board. A lot of value actually on DK as well, and not drawing a lot of ownership. So what do we make of Malik Monk? And then what about the rest of the Sacramento team?
I have no idea.
I was kind of hoping you would know.
No, I mean, we don't have an injury report. They played yesterday. Are we who are we expecting not to play?
I am
Herder?
trying to figure that out.
No, we have Herder.
No, he's in there. Yeah. Oh, he's only projected for 3 minutes though. He's got a placeholder minutes.
Yeah, so I'm really confused. Like if there was news overnight that he's not playing, I missed it. We don't have an injury report. I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, I'm assuming that's just an error.
Actually looks like Malik Monk came out of last night's game with an ankle injury.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm ignoring this.
Keep an eye on Malik Monk for later in the day, gang. We've got a lot of news that'll be broken, and I'm sure our tools will be updated. What do we make of the rest of the Sacramento Kings?
So assuming that we're getting a normal Kings lineup here and not Malik Monk day, nothing. Like okay. It's just it's Sabonis again. Like he's great, but he's center only on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's got power forward. Power forward, so 95. I like him somewhat on FanDuel, 9,500 power forward eligible, but DraftKings just really tough to get there. Sort of the same boat with Davis. Like there is some path where Sabonis ends up being the highest scoring center at least, so he's playable, I guess. But like I would rather go Davis if I'm going that route. De'Aaron Fox at 9K looks fine, but you know, pretty much a correct price tag for him. There's nothing from the Kings that looks overly appealing. This game is really scary because like it's got a high total. It's the last game of the night. It's just, I don't know what you prioritize from it.
Yeah, it's weird for a game with that high of a total, really not showing all that much value. And maybe it's just something went wonky because we do have that oddball Malik Monk number in there. So we'll see how this shakes out later in the day. But yeah, for a game with that kind of a total to not be presenting this much value, and a game with these kinds of players in it too, who are typically very fantasy friendly, relevant players, surprising the way that this one's breaking down. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see where it goes later on. I think that cleans up the Kings side. What about to end the show? What about Keegan Murray? 32-minute projection, not showing any kind of value. Any love for him?
He's just
I don't know why I chose to end this show.
Him, Barnes, Herder, assuming Herder plays more than 3 minutes. Watch Herder just roll his ankle in the first quarter.
Yeah, 3 minutes exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, Malik Monk just smashes.
Right.
But no, I mean, there's just like if you land on them as the last piece of your lineup, sure, but like you're not going into the slate being like, oh yeah, give me Keegan Murray, give me Harrison Barnes. Like if you have a lineup that needs a $5,500 forward and it happens to be Barnes or Murray, like fine.
Yeah, and hopefully it's line up like 147 out of 150 as you're ending your process here. All right, gang, that's going to bring us up to the end of the show here. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. That helps us out a great deal. It helps you guys follow along with all of our different offers. We only got 97 likes. Come on, gang. I know I'm not Josh out here. I know I'm not Lofty here, but show me a little bit of love. And Adam is up on a Saturday morning doing some hard work here. I'm sure that wasn't easy. So show us a little bit of love out there, gang. Let's talk about what's coming up the rest of the day here. We've got shows galore. 1 p.m. NFL strategy show, tournament strategy with Greg and Neil. That's going to be an important one to watch. 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock MMA live before lock with Greg and Josh Harris. And then 6 o'clock to 7:30, we've got Emac and Neil. Neil coming back. Big day for Neil. Gotta love that. Tons of knowledge coming out of Neil. So Emac and Neil will be here 6 to 7:30 for NBA live before lock to take you guys through this slate once again. Adam, tell the people where to find you on Twitter and so forth.
At Ship My Money. At Ship My Money DFS on Twitter.
And I'm not even going to tell you mine because it's not worth following. Thank you very much. Mikey Lawrence behind the scenes producing this one for you guys, gang. So appreciate him. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're out of here, gang. See you. Good luck tonight.